Now the scene abruptly shifts to the past. In the Royal Academy of Magentano Kingdom, few boys are walking as they own the place. We find out the leader of them is none other than the son of one of the Duke named Thanos. He is the person with the most authority in the Royal Academy. All the boys walk towards Julian, brother of Lloyd. Son of Duke can't handle the fact that a newbie such as Julian has surpassed him with higher grades, and he doesn't want to see Julian around in the school again, and then talks about making Julian crippled. He had complete monopoly in the school until Lloyd showed up. He, with his clever mind, made Queen Alicia terminate the son of Thanos from school, stripped Thanos of his position as Duke and took all of his assets. Son of Duke captured Lloyd as he blamed Lloyd for his situation, and stabbed him. But Lloyd, being genius in magical powers, survives from this attack somehow. After losing both power and magic, son of Thanos promises to take his revenge from Lloyd for his condition one day. We are back to the current scene where Thanos' son is walking with a dagger towards Lloyd, but Lloyd blocks his attack easily and attacks back. Lloyd asks him mockingly if he is the same guy who got expelled for doing mean things. This infuriates the other guy and he throws some magical blood daggers at Lloyd. But Lloyd easily defends himself with his shovel and strikes back. Lloyd is a little surprised by what this dude did and asks the villain if he just used blood magic, as he has never seen something like that in novel. Villain angrily asks Lloyd, how can someone like him become the most meritorious subject? As Lloyd is someone who would kill anyone if it would benefit him. Scene then shifts to the Magentano Kingdom. The Queen is practicing swords fighting with Javier, and Javier asks the Queen what she thinks of Lloyd. Queen says she thinks of Lloyd as competent and talented and she would like to keep him by her side. Javier asks if it is the only reason she would like to keep him by her side. The Queen says if she needs any other reason. And tells Javier that he is acting a little weird. Queen is clearly nervous and tries to deflect the question and tells Javier she has no idea what he is on about. Javier tells Queen, no matter how strong a warrior is, he still needs a home to come to, where his tired body can rest, and they would also need someone to wait for them and to cuddle them to sleep. The Queen is sweating at this. And the scene shifts back to Lloyd and villain's fight. Lloyd is beating the guy badly for saying Lloyd is selfish. He punches him again and again, but the villain begins to smile. Then he begins to convert into some monster and we see blood flying around like a tornado. Lloyd says the monster looks even uglier than him. The blood monster begins to attack Lloyd, but Javier senses the attack on his master. Queen asks where he is looking, but Javier apologizes to her and flies off to Lloyd. Before the monster can swallow Lloyd, Javier hits the monster with his sword and the monster converts back to normal. Javier flies off with Lloyd to a distance and goes back to attack the guy, but he bites his arm and makes that blood tornado again and disappears, leaving a pit of blood behind. Javier and Lloyd are both surprised that where did he go? Lloyd is confused for the first time because he has never read about blood magic, and where does magic like this come from? We see that the villain has teleported to some other place and he swears to take revenge on Lloyd. Javier apologizes to Lloyd for not striking in the head, but Lloyd tells him to chill, as no one could predict that villain would disappear like that. Lloyd looks at Javier and says, even if someone tries, I have a grandmaster who would come to protect me wherever I am. Javier is worried and hopes that the villain won't attack Lloyd again. But suddenly a message box pops up showing that the number of people saved by Lloyd became -1. That means because of Lloyd coming to this world, someone died, who shouldn't have died in the novel. Scene abruptly shifts to the Queen's palace. Lloyd wants to start construction as soon as possible, but the Queen has created a protection wall for Lloyd's security because of last night's attack. This amount of protection is must for the most meritorious subject of the kingdom. Lloyd asks the Queen to remove this protection as he has Javier, who is equivalent to millions of soldiers. Queen agrees, and then she orders to investigate this new blood magic. Lloyd is now worried as he wants to know who is that one person who died because of him, and he needs to get the jewel of truth so that he can change the fate of millions of people. He then commands all the workers to start digging as he is determined to find Toranga to construct the truth jewel. Toranga is actually one of the 4 pillars under the castle which Lloyd is planning to take. But naturally the nobles wouldn't agree with such a ridiculous request, but the Queen will take care of it by telling them it is for castle maintenance. Lloyd begins to make plans on how to harvest Toranga. First they will dig up ground beside the Queen's palace and make a tunnel to directly take the one Toranga they need. If they make a mistake, it can create a huge problem. Lloyd, being an engineer, knows that is why people in modern times use a strong foundation for construction. Lloyd begins to think of a modern method called the ground freezing method. It infuses cold air to freeze the moisture of the ground and make the foundation strong. As Lloyd has read the novel, Iron Blood and Night, he knows the only thing that can help them in this world with this freezing method is the Winter Heart. It is one of the divine artifacts in Magentano's collection which stores the world of winter in it, which means unlimited freezing power. It was given to the Magentano kingdom by an ice dragon as a weapon. In the novel, when Queen Alicia Magentano turned dark, she used this artifact to freeze her enemies. But to use the artifact, approbation of council will be needed, which will be taken care of by the queen by means of bribes. Lloyd plans on using the Winter Heart to freeze the ground and take the Toranga easily, but Lloyd will need to place another support below the ground. But suddenly Javier notices a familiar face. It is none other than Javier's true love, which makes him blush. Lloyd tells Javier that he called her to handle the artifact as she is such a genius, and then persuades Javier to go talk to her. Lloyd tells Javier that he knows Javier missed the girl and Lloyd's eyes can tell if someone likes someone. Javier thinks to himself that Lloyd cannot use this ability on himself, as he can't see the queen's love for him. Javier says to Lloyd that he is not going anywhere as someone is behind your life, but Lloyd says he can defend himself from that blood magic guy if he is careful. Now Lloyd is back to work. He decides to complete the project in steps, where the ground will be dug vertically to put rebar and concrete in, which is done by the pet of Lloyd immediately. Second step is setting a refrigerant room, which is done faster than Lloyd imagined. Third step, bring the best mages to control Winter Heart artifact, which is taken care of. The pipes would be inserted in the ground to freeze the base structure for better support. Fourth step would be to dig upwards to extract the Toranga, which is again being done with the help of Lloyd's pet. This project is being done faster than any of the previous projects, but that is better as Lloyd is short on time to save people. But suddenly a plan comes into the mind of the protagonist to complete the project faster. He tells the rebar team to prepare for concrete coating. Suddenly the scene shifts to Winter Heart room where mages are busy handling Winter Heart, but suddenly blood magic guy has entered the room. Scene shifts to flashback in the past to nighttime in Magentano Kingdom. In this scene, we see Magentano's noble council principal, Duke Toscano, talking with another duke about Lloyd. They dislike the fact that Lloyd, who is a son of a common noble, has become the most meritorious subject. Because of Lloyd, few nobles have been forced to step down from their position. They both plan to take Lloyd and the Queen Alicia Magentano down, as the Queen is providing Lloyd with aggressive support. Suddenly he is greeted by none other than Worthrod, the son of former Duke Thanos. Worthrod is the same guy who is using blood magic. Duke Toscano is surprised to see Worthrod. Worthrod tells Toscano that if the cause of the worry is Lloyd, he can help to deal with him. Worthrod asks Duke Toscano about what Lloyd is doing in the palace. Duke Toscano tells him that Lloyd is doing some maintenance work, for which Lloyd has borrowed Winter Heart. Mention of Winter Heart brings a creepy smile on the face of Worthrod. Worthrod gives his blood to Toscano and tells him to spill it near the construction site. By this way, Worthrod will reveal the true face of Lloyd as a demon. Back to the construction site, Lloyd is greeted by a construction worker. Lloyd asks him what he wants, but the worker just thanks him for the diplomatic relationship he established with Ashfahan, the neighbor country. Because of that, his wife could learn pottery, which was her dream. Worker tells that he also wants to make a lot of money by working in the construction site of Lloyd, and even his son started to learn civil engineering to become like Lloyd. Lloyd in return asks them 1,000 coins each, which they give very happily. Javier tells Lloyd that he extorted the workers, but the Lloyd tells that he was only joking and returns the money back to workers. In the back, we see one of the royal guard of the palace asking the other guard to bring soldiers for the next shift, and then the guard secretly takes out the blood of Worthrod. He spills it on the ground, which summons Worthrod. Worthrod enters the place where Winter Heart was being controlled by the magicians. Javier senses the presence of Worthrod. Javier tells Lloyd that the blood magic guy is back. Lloyd tells Javier to protect the truth jewel. In the room where the Winter Heart is kept, fight is going on between Worthrod and the magician. Worthrod attacks the magician and breaks the barrier of Winter Heart. Winter Heart begins to release freezing cold waves across the entire palace. Lloyd asks Javier to stop the Winter Heart. But since the jewel possesses the power of a high-level dragon, it is hard even for Javier to control it. When everyone was struggling with the cold, suddenly the message pops up in front of Lloyd. Lloyd gets a new title effect named, "My hands are cold and my feet are numb." This gives Lloyd a special ability that even in the freezing cold temperature the body of Lloyd won't be affected. After that, Lloyd immediately begins to run towards the room of Winter Heart, because even though winter might not affect him, it will affect the normal people and workers. But suddenly as Lloyd was running, he was stabbed by Worthrod with his purple sword. Lloyd is taken by surprise. Worthrod tells Lloyd to face the truth about himself, and suddenly the veins of Lloyd begins to pop just like Queen Alicia. Lloyd suddenly finds himself in an empty void. He looks at himself, and finds that he is back in his original body of Kim Suho. Suddenly, he hears a voice. When he looks back, he finds an evil version of himself. He has an evil smile on face. Evil Lloyd asks the protagonist to destroy the palace and extract the Toranga and Unalive all the workers. Like the video if you want me to upload next part as soon as possible. Subscribe so you automatically get notification when I upload next part.